question that is burning in her heart.
Yeah, this was an opportunity for others to ask questions, but there weren't any for the panel. Oh, pass it forward. Thank you. There was a question from Dick. Dick, this is a question I can talk with you and give lots of information. I'm going to touch on it later, okay? Let me just read this. In the intensity of the needs for the movement organizing in the last few years, and even this election cycle, so many people are overwhelmed by the enormity of our issues. They're burned out, they're fearful of political violence. How are you thinking about engagement of organizing strategy for focusing people, energy, and growing your movements or your work?
So Joan mentioned like political violence, things like that. Being in the Permian Basin, it's a very conservative area, and when you question oil and gas, it can put you in a very vulnerable position. And so in my work, we're always thinking about, you know, how can we best protect the people that choose to step out, because it's really, you know, it's a big decision for them to do so. A lot of people, that's how they're supported, that's how they support their family. And then also, even if you're not supporting your family that way, in our particular region, even when you question the oil and gas industry a little bit, you can get quite a bit of pushback socially on a bunch of different levels. So that's something that's always in the back of our mind, is the, you know, potential for people being ostracized from their community, but then also the potential for political violence too at the same time. There's quite a few, I guess, extremists, is what you would say, living in that region, and so that's something that we're always thinking about. The Permian is a very overwhelming place to be, because it's vast and it's large, and there are corporations that are some of the biggest corporations in the world with the most money in the world pulling the strings in our local community, and that can be quite overwhelming. And so I think what Citizens Caring for the Future has done is, first of all, stood up, which when I found out that there was a group such as Citizens Caring for the Future, I was absolutely shocked that people were doing what they were doing. I came into the game kind of late, and so just standing up and being brave and even saying that there's a problem, I think really has the potential to make a lot of change. But I think something that we're also starting to do is kind of really turn to look at our community more and what our community needs. We advocate for regulations, laws, different big picture items that can do things like cut emissions or cut production in our region. We advocate for those, but that progress is slow, and you don't always feel it quickly, especially on the front lines. And so we've started to really think, how can we help people in a really practical manner? And so we've recently bought air purifiers that we will be handing out to people living near oil and gas sites. Also educating people on how can living within a half-mile of an oil and gas site harm your health, and what can you tell your doctor? Like, we're giving people handouts so that they know what to pay attention to in their own body, and then talk to their doctor about, because healthcare practitioners, you know, they're really not too aware of the health issues that can come with this either. So I think for us, organizing is really on a person-to-person level, and making sure that the community is taken care of first and foremost, so that then they can maybe step out and advocate in an even larger way, and hopefully turn the tide in a big way eventually. So.
Thank you for that question. It's just so interesting and so needed at this time. What we are doing at the Missionary Society of St. Columban in our Office of Justice, Peace, and Ecology is we're focusing on empowering those people who are interested in joining the climate movement, or just interested in being more engaged, but civically engaged themselves. We offer like advocacy trainings and just educational resources so that people can understand the situation, because there's a lot of information out there and it creates climate anxiety. It's just stressful out there, specifically for young adults, young people. So creating resources, making those connections so that at least there's a safe space for people to go. Specifically, in my organization, in a Catholic organization, we're creating that space where young adults can, from around the United States, can connect. And internationally, our society does that well with young people from all over. To find a place where you can go and have peace, have people that understand you and don't judge you. And I think the church congregations overall are a perfect place to do that, because it is all of these situations, it is causing a lot of anxiety. It's a complicated situation, and what better place than to come back to the place where we feel hope, where we feel safe, to kind of recharge and then go back out there in the world and fight this. Locally in El Paso, I'm working with several groups there of young people and other groups promoting Laudato Si, the letter from our Pope, which has been a great gift, a blessing, that help us expand and bring awareness again to the situation. And I think, again, the goal is to create a safe space, to create more resources where people can do this work from a faith angle, from a social angle, from a personal, just being more empowered. And I'm glad to kind of give a shout out to Odile over there, that she's doing a lot of work with me in El Paso, kind of promoting Laudato Si and again creating that safe space for people.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to learn how to organize during one of the most politically divisive times of my lifetime. Just coming in when we were more politically divided than like I've ever had memory of. And then also to add like a global pandemic on top of it, it's just been all these different complications and trying to communicate the different issues and the sentiments that people are feeling. And I just definitely feel that I got very lucky in that I got to come from a place of hope and just have this be like an opportunity, like we have an opportunity to make changes and do something better. And like imagine if these changes would actually be better for society. Like if we had more clean energy, what if that was more reliable? What if that was less polluting? And what if like there was more, better for our economy and all these different areas that people don't even think about? So in that sentiment, like I definitely have felt that too, that it's very overwhelming. The problems are so overwhelming and it's just one after the other. But then it's good to remember that the solutions are also overwhelming. Like there's huge movements happening all over. Like New Mexico, we were the third state in the country to pass 100% clean energy legislation. There's so many like movements happening all over just because people are realizing like this is possible. Like what if this is something that can happen? And just being able to reach people in this time when it's hard to listen and hard to communicate and to reach across this very big divide. I think having these messages of hope and coming from the heart and just telling each other's stories and just having this imagination of something greater than what we have currently. Like change can be scary. Like that's definitely something I think everyone in this room and outside this room can reflect and like has felt. Like change is very, very terrifying, no matter what the situation is, but what if the change can be something good? And I think that's something that's very important to hold on to when it feels very overwhelming.
I don't have a ton to add to those answers because they were fantastic, but just to the point of like things being overwhelming and to the problems being so multifaceted that it's hard to figure out like where to get started. One thing that I like, just like a thought that I find to be very helpful is that the idea of parallel processes, that not necessarily every person needs to be engaged on every single thing at the same time, and kind of figuring out like what's my place, where am I an expert, where am I a supporter, where am I listening, where am I learning, who's the smartest at that specific problem. I don't have to do everything. Like every person doesn't have to do everything, and God, how confusing and overwhelming would it be if we were? So I take a lot of solace in knowing that we've got excellent, wonderful local organizers and activists here. So I don't have to necessarily be that person because we You know, I can be a different kind of thing, and I can be engaged on different kinds of issues. That's one way that kind of helps deal with that overwhelm for me personally.
Thank you all so much. So our final question is meant to encourage all of us when it seems we face such a dismal outlook on climate change. Archbishop Desmond Tutu shared quite a lot of his need for hope as he worked with the Truth and Reconciliation Committee following the violent end to apartheid.